Et voila,
Et
indeed.
voila.
I'm told, I hope this is true, that at the BBC, unlike American television control rooms, instead of saying 5, 4, 3, go, something like that, they say proceed.
I also hope that's accurate. I also do not know if that is real, but I very much hope that it is.
Yes, I'd like to think it's that.
Exactly. I like the idea of it being terribly British.
Yes.
Proceed. Proceed, madame et monsieur. Solid. Solid, funny things when you think about it. You're welcome. You are very welcome. Hello.
I like when my
everybody.
Anecdotes have purpose.
I've often referred to you as a purposeful anecdote.
Thank you.
So it all makes sense.
Thank you. It all makes sense.
It all makes sense. Oh my. Hello. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
For those of you joining us, I am Jessie. This is Leonard. He is my father, not my husband.
She is my daughter.
Always important to clarify that one.
Yeah. Apparently for some people.
Apparently for some people. I get it. We live in LA. Still, you're all creepy. Still all creepy. But yeah, here we are. My goodness. Hello from balmy Canoga Park. Yes, it is quite toasty where we are as well. And man, oh man, my husband is working. Finally, gigs have returned, and my husband is working.
Yes.
And he has had to do a whole bunch of outdoor gigs in the 103-degree heat, which has been no fun at all for him.
Yeah.
And he is pale like I am and English, so when he comes home, he's just this beautiful tomato-looking thing. Poor guy, but we're happy that work is returning.
We're happy that
I
work
will not complain.
Is here and also on the horizon.
Yes. I said to my mom, I said, I think people, because the most recent events he's worked on have been, my husband does lighting. If you don't know, my husband does lighting. Normally he tours with bands or with shows.
Mm-hmm.
In the UK, he toured with a lot of different musicals. Here he does a little bit of everything.
He's even toured with ice shows. He
has toured with ice skating shows. He's toured with kids, all kinds of things. But as things are starting up in LA, slowly but surely, he's done several bar and bat mitzvahs.
And they need lighting too.
I said, see, honey, you really are living in LA. You're doing bar and bat mitzvahs. And he's working an event today at the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, which is actually where my bat mitzvah was. And I said, so just think, honey, you're reliving history. Now, I did make the mistake of thinking about how long ago my bat mitzvah was.
You walked into that.
1999. Remember that year? It was a good year. That was the year of my bat mitzvah. Oy, that's a while ago. That is a while ago. But yes, thank you guys for joining us. We wanted to wait a minute and make sure everybody gets in. Yes, of course.
No crowding. Come on in.
You're out of control.
Okay.
We must start, of course, with the sad news today that Ed Asner passed away. And do you remember the last time we saw him? Because I do.
No, I don't remember.
Savannah.
Remember. Oh, really?
We saw him in Savannah at the SCAD Savannah Film Festival in Georgia. That's where we saw him. And he was as ornery as ever. Mm-hmm. He truly was a character. But everyone we know who worked with him adored him.
Yeah.
And today, as lots of people are sharing memories, it's pretty incredible. Just how many people he worked with, and of course, because he continued to work.
Right. To the almost to the very
truly
end.
To the very end. Yeah. It's mind blowing. Really.
And even I got to work with him.
Yes,
Not
you
just
did.
meet him or
These
interview
are the important
him,
things.
But I got to work with him.
Yep.
I was written into an episode of a short-lived animated series called Freakazoid.
Such a good show.
Done by Warner Brothers Animation. And they wrote me into a script playing myself. And they recorded it like a radio show.
Yep.
Everybody gathered.
Which, if you don't know, is not common.
Well, certainly not common with animated features.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
It's not a feature, a show.
I know.
Oh, no, that's sorry. I understand what you just said. Yeah, they don't tend to do, they don't tend to have everybody in a room together. Now, there are a handful of shows that do, like Bob's Burgers does, but for the most part, you're alone. Well, my dad was very lucky. Hello, dogs. My dad was very lucky.
See, they are a Hanna-Barbera sound effect waiting to be used.
They are. As they run around.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you walked in and it was Ed Asner's a handful of others.
I was sitting between Ed Asner and David Warner.
Mm-hmm.
And in the room and on the mics were Tim Curry, guest star that week, and the regulars, Maurice LaMarche, and Rob Paulson and Tress MacNeille. These are
legendary names.
Yeah. Working animation voiceover specialists.
Yeah. And if you look at any of the three of them up, you'll see every single part of your life from your childhood to today. But you had such a good time.
Oh man, I would have paid to do that. I would have paid to get in.
Oh yeah. And
to exchange lines and to be part of that sort of, for just a little while, community.
Yeah.
Of actors, which I'm not an actor, but was as exciting as it gets.
Yeah.
As exciting as it gets. We even had to sing a line from Gilbert and Sullivan together.
Carefully on tiptoe stealing. Yes.
And Bruce Broughton, the music director, came in just to sort of supervise our rendition of that. Oh, wonderful day. I have a photo or two, which is adds to the nice memory.
Yes.
And the very first time I met him, you were then very young. You were watching Nick at Night and enjoying the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yep.
So I said to Mr. Asner, my daughter's going to be very excited that I met you because she watches the Mary Tyler Moore Show every night. And he put his arm around me. He said, tell them it would be nice maybe if they paid us again.
Hollywood.
It's called Kidding on the Square.
Hollywood stories.
Yes, he was one time, maybe more than once, the president of the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah.
And so those folks are always concerned about living wage.
Yeah.
And being able to continue to do what you want to do what you love, do what you were trained to do, and not starve.
Remember, as a side note, that you really don't know how much money anyone is making outside of your Avengers stars, where you hear about the $20 million paycheck, things like that. A lot of folks on TV are working actors, and they are working because they need to work.
Yeah.
Not just because they love it, but also because if this is your job, money is a funny thing, but especially here, people often think that if you're on television, you must be very wealthy. And we have a whole lot of friends who can tell you, not the case.
Not. And they have different levels of residual, depending on whether it's a basic cable network that's showing a rerun or a premium network, et cetera, et cetera. Alice and I did have the great pleasure of seeing him on Broadway, though. Yeah. In 2012. Yep. We happened to be in New York at a moment when Paul Rudd and Michael Shannon, two terrific actors, were on stage in a play called Grace. Mm. And Ed Asner had a supporting role. And of course, he was really good.
He was great, yeah.
No surprise there. Boy. And if your kids don't know who that is, just tell them it's Carl in the Pixar movie Up. He was Carl.
I mean, this is the thing. Ed Asner looked like Ed Asner. You knew who that was. And it is incredible with shows like Mary Tyler Moore, things that were on Nick at Night, that different generations can be introduced to something. And for them, it's new. That's the other thing that's sort of mind-blowing is whenever you're introduced to something, it is new to you. Yes, so people are saying he's an elf. Yes, he's Santa and elf. He's not Santa and elf. He is. Yes, sorry, he is. got confused for a second because it's who plays his dad, the famous Bob Newhart plays Buddy the Elf's dad, who is an elf, but Santa Claus is indeed Ed Asner. Yeah, I always think about that with when Nick at Night was this huge thing that we watched. You know, I Love Lucy, Bewitched, Be Wednesdays was their best wordplay on that. And
their Joe Fridays.
Joe Friday, we watched Dragnet on Fridays. And you know, again, it's the idea that Ed Asner, best forearms in television. I'm with you, Ken. I'm with you. At
one time, the Screen Actors Guild had a contract that gave them residuals for 7 runs of a show, and that seemed like a lot. You know, if you're on a series and it gets reused, you know, 7 different times, you get paid a residual. That sounds good until you find out that shows that last 20, 30, 40, 50 years are in their 7,000th rerun.
Yeah, I do enjoy, you know, when I see someone, when I see one of my friends pop up when I'm watching something, I'll text them and say, I really hope you're getting a check because I just saw you on Showtime. You know, fingers crossed for all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ed Asner,
anyway, Godspeed, Ed Asner.
Truly a legend. And I think that.
And also consider too that he was born in 1929, and he started working in the 50s. And he worked sort of without recognition for a long time before that role of Lou Grant came his way in the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Up to then, I mean, people took notice of him when he had a good guest star shot on a TV series or in a movie. He worked, he made a living, but you know, you couldn't pick him out in a crowd. Most people couldn't pick him out in a crowd. And then overnight, almost literally, he became a household name during that run of Mary Tyler Moore.
It is the magic of television, truly. A side note to that, I mean, at this different times, but still really interesting. We got to interview Ted Sarandos, who is over at Netflix and has been at Netflix since day one. And he talked about how he watched Millie Bobby Brown's Instagram account go from, 20 followers to over 1 million overnight. And I know that may sound silly, but it's just the idea that it's true. The way things are nowadays with how fast they spread, you hear this term viral all the time, but the idea that, everyone watches certain things. Obviously in the pandemic, it's been similar because we all need entertainment. So a show like The Queen's Gambit gets watched by everyone.
Yeah.
Now, if I describe that show to you, do you think that absolutely everyone would be watching it? I don't know, but
everyone ought to. It's terrific.
It's great. But if I say, oh, it's this film about a female chess prodigy, and and it's on Netflix and blah 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 blah, and it's like everybody watched it.
Yeah, the word of mouth was, astonishing.
Immediate.
Yeah.
So when I think back to when shows like Mary Tyler Moore were on, it's similar only in that there weren't so many channels.
Yes.
There weren't so many options. So akin to if you speak to someone, if you ask somebody, did you watch Ed Sullivan? They go, well, of course. Whether you liked him or not, whether you liked the acts that were on or not, of course I watched Ed Sullivan. What else would I watch? So it's, as I say, one hell of a career.
Yep.
And if you got to go out on top, and he absolutely did.
Yes.
So bless him.
Yeah.
Now I promised, I tweeted today because I did promise last week when we brought up pre-code and those kinds of conversations, a number of you messaged me afterwards and said, we would really love to hear more about that. And
I will do that when I'm better prepared. We'll talk a little about it today.
Yeah.
But then I want to really get my crib notes and not be reaching to remember titles or people who are responsible for these films. But again, the sweet spot is 1930 to mid 1934. Mid 1934. And it's amusing to know that in early 1934, you could still get away with certain things that were absolutely verboten in late 1934. It's wild.
So to explain just at the beginning here.
Sure.
You may hear about different sort of rules that developed as film was developing.
Yes. And in the 30s, the Depression era, Hollywood was really, as I said last week, pushing the envelope. That's a term that didn't exist
raunchy.
then. Yes. Getting
raunchy is the word.
Very racy and raunchy. Now, for instance, everybody or most people know that it was a big deal for Clark Gable to say, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
And Gone with the Wind in 1939. Well, if that had been 1929, it wouldn't have been a big issue at all. But by 1939, the production code was being enforced, and you couldn't say hell or damn or stronger swear words. Hell and damn seemed pretty mild today, and they were still fairly mild then, but you couldn't use those words. So David O. Selznick, the producer of Gone with the Wind, had to go and make his case before the Court of Appeal at the Motion Picture Association and say, look, this is a best-selling novel. It's been read by millions of people. It will seem absurd if we change that line or use another word, by heck. It just doesn't, it won't have the same punch. And he finally won his case. And the morals of the vast population of the U.S. were not sullied.
They dealt with it.
Yeah, they dealt with it.
They dealt with it.
Right.
They handled it.
But in late silent films, you can, if you read lips, and I'm not a great lip reader, but you don't have to be a great lip reader to watch films like What Price Glory, or a number of sort of films with rough, tough guys in the military, to see them going, or it's very amusing. It's very amusing.
I like that. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do with you from now on. If people always ask if he curses, we're just gonna have you mouth things. My mom will stand behind you and go, "Damn." Be fine. Be totally fine. Anyway,
movies got racier, and then if there was any one person who helped push things over the edge, it was Mae West. When Mae West came to Hollywood, and she brought her persona with her, and her saucy attitude about sex, and a lot of women's groups, civic organizations were shocked and offended in equal measure, I guess. And said, well, this is it. This is the last straw. She was the last straw. And her first two or three films came out before the code. And a lot of people think that she was the one who really
pushed it.
And so Mae West's films made after the code are much milder and less potent. They're not bad movies, but they can't compare to She Done Him Wrong and I'm No Angel. And if you haven't seen those films, Mae West is something else. You really have to see her. And remember that she wrote her own material. Mae West is not celebrated enough as being a writer, a screenwriter. She wrote her own plays on Broadway, and though they aren't studied as great texts of the 20th century, she wrote her own vehicles and did the same when she came to Hollywood.
A few folks are mentioning Betty Boop as another example, and yes, of course, that's a big one.
I mean, the image that people still have of Betty Boop is Betty Boop wearing a very frilly, short skirt with a garter belt. And by the end of 1934, she was wearing longer skirts,
overalls,
and no longer being pursued by lechers, as we used to call them.
Yes.
Now they call them predators, but then they were lecherous guys. And there's that one pre-code Betty Boop cartoon where she says, "He couldn't take my boop boop a boop away, boop boop a doop away." Duh. Anyway, So there's a lot of examples, and Jane in Tarzan and his mate was wearing very little, shockingly little.
Yeah.
And by the end of that year, she was in a Mother Hubbard.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, it is so interesting what people feel is and is not appropriate.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite examples always is the train scene.
Yeah. In North by
Northwest, Hitchcock, because it's two-part that I enjoy immensely. Two bits. The first is that you weren't allowed to kiss for more than 3 seconds at a time. Oh, it was specific.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know that is from the documentaries about the film. They talked about what Hitchcock did to get around this is he would have his characters kiss, pull away and say something, kiss, pull away and say something. So it'd be the kind of thing where they'd go, I love you, but you're not that. And it was his way of getting around those you couldn't be kissing for too long scenes. Yeah. And then, of course, a train going into a mountain.
Into a tunnel. Tunnel is more appropriate.
It is, but it's a tunnel in a mountain, isn't it? Which, again, is imagery that you can figure out.
Well, Billy Wilder was one of many screenwriters in the 1930s who said that the only benefit of the code and its enforcement was that it forced them to be more ingenious.
Yeah.
It forced them to come up with clever solutions or workarounds. And some people contend that screwball comedies were the result of sexual repression on screen. I mean, if you can't show sex or talk about sex, you have to do something. And that's something slapstick and knockabout humor, farce, and all of that, it's felt, was a direct result of the code.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. That's very kind. Victoria says, Betty Boop, #me too. Too soon? Too late? I don't know.
Too late.
Robin's saying, was the Tex Avery Wolf a riff on Betty Boop cartoons?
No.
But I understand what you mean. Again, funny the imagery that sticks. I think everybody knows, first of all, that horn sound, but the eyes that go awooga.
Yeah.
And I do immediately think of that when I think of sort of a male reaction to something sexy.
Sometimes some, especially screenwriters and directors, would put deliberately outrageous things in the scripts
so they wouldn't notice.
So that after arguing over that point, they could sneak something more innocent, let's say, in or not call attention to it.
Bait and switch.
Bait and switch, exactly.
That's what that is.
Exactly right.
If you're looking over here, you're not noticing over here.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. As I say, and truly watching the movies, and then of course, and this is also to do with now, when people talk about there was that time where obviously code was the way it was and you couldn't make things. Now I feel like our pendulum has gone so far the other direction.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I find it really, really lazy when people curse in a movie nonstop. And I mean nonstop. Not just like it's a character thing where there's a character who's funny who curses all the time, but I find it really lazy. And I think that this is the one thing that when you do put rules there, you can't show something. Well, then you have to, work harder.
In the early 50s, I'm off on the year 51, 52, the early 50s version of Angels in the Outfield, where Paul Douglas plays the coach of the Pittsburgh Pirates. They couldn't have him curse, but they wanted to get across the idea that he was a foul-mouthed guy. So he curses kind of double talk.
Which is generally, by the way, and I recommend this to you because it's a nice release. When something's not working or if we're upset, you'll hear one of us Malton folk walk around going, and
it's funny. In addition to solving a problem,
yes,
it's funny.
It's funny.
Yeah.
And
we all know what he's really thinking.
Yeah. But it's entertaining. No, a movie that this came up for me fairly recently. I liked the first Kingsman. I don't think it's fantastic, but I liked it. The second one, I swear every other word was the F word. And again, I enjoy cursing. I'm a fan of it. I have fun with it. I like making them up. But this, as I say, just comes across to me as lazy. You couldn't figure out another way to say this, or your characters don't have enough dialogue. Because surely you didn't, if you did write that, then wow.
Also, there's a lot of crudity in the humor.
Yeah, well, yeah. And that is what it is. It's. And again, this is the thing. If something is clever, you don't mind. Something can be crude or ridiculous or potty humor, whatever you want to, but if it's done well, you laugh. You know, it's funny. But when you're leaning on something like that, and that's it, that's all you have, you kind of go, well, that's not enough, is it?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
A few folks are asking how things, once the code came in, how that changed everything.
All right. Well, you could not show, I don't understand the reason, never have understood the reason for this, but violence was one of its goals, to simmer down the violence.
Mm-hmm.
So you could not show a man firing a bullet at another person and the other person receiving the bullet in the same shot.
Yeah.
I don't get that. But perhaps to soften the blow a little bit, which I don't think it did, you'd show, bang, and then cut to another shot of the guy going, ugh.
Yeah.
Or something of that sort. So that was a big change. That was it, because that was it in Violet. You had to do that. They couldn't even hit drug use, which had been, if not directly shown, pretty clearly inferred in a film like Three on a Match. Three on a Match has a little of everything in it. 1932, early Warner Brothers talkie with a great cast. The three women who are on a match, who share a match, changing their fate, are Betty Davis, Joan Blondell, and Dvorak. And Bogart, young Bogart, is in the movie too. It's a very good film. And it runs something like 64 minutes. I mean, they pack so much.
We love a short film.
They pack so much into that movie. But it does deal with drugs. And, if you see somebody kind of looking shriveled or very hyper, very nervous, I mean, those are all hints that, that's what they're getting at. And they wouldn't have even been able to do that several years later. Hinting at abortion, hinting at having gotten pregnant. Now, babies out of wedlock continue to be a story ingredient from that day to this, but how they dealt with it had to change. Oh, suicide must be punished. If someone takes their own life, that's considered a mortal sin. Catholics consider that a mortal sin. And so it had to be resolved in some way. Someone had to pay for committing that crime. And those are a lot of, if a man was kissing a woman on a chaise longue or a divan, what they used to call a divan, had to keep one foot on the floor.
Yeah. That is another one of my favorites. I have to keep one foot on the floor to just remind them that nothing naughty is going to happen because the foot's on the floor.
You could look this up.
It's all wild. It's all really wild. Yes. Hello, Carol in Texas. Mr. Leonard Malton and daughter. I'll go with that. That's okay with me. Now, what ended All Things Crazy Code?
Well, society did, essentially. The late 60s were a time of extreme change and evolution, revolution and evolution. And so by the late 60s, films like The Graduate, and Bonnie and Clyde with its extreme violence, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf with its fairly free use of language. Those films kind of forced the hand of the Motion Picture Association. They said, well, if people are going to accept this now, I guess we have to change with the times. So then what happened is in the early 70s, all hell broke loose. And even Billy Wilder, made the films he made from 1970. He didn't make that many in the 70s, but the ones that he did make gave him a little broader canvas to work on. But people not as talented as Billy Wilder saw it as a, oh my gosh, we can do anything.
Yeah.
And it's like a kid being given.
It's a free for all. It's a free for all.
Yeah, a key to the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. And it all comes back to the question: just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Well, and this is why I always joke that I feel like I sort of straddled this funny line between yesterday and today, because there are a lot of things where I do feel like a little old lady going, back in the day they did it better. And then the other part of me says, but you can't be like that because it's of no use. When I was talking to Arlene the other day, checking in, a dear friend of ours, her name is Arlene Ludwig. We've spoken about her just a little bit. Her father was Irving Ludwig.
The first president of Buena Vista.
Yes.
When Walt and Roy Disney decided to open their own distribution company.
And it was Arlene's birthday, so I called her to wish her happy birthday, and we were talking, and mentioned that we had just spoken to some mutual friends, and she said, I'm not saying that things were better before, but maybe they were a little better. I said, Arlene, things were better before. And I say that just because, in part, we know so much. We know so much about the making of every movie. We know so much about the actors, the actresses. We know their breakups, if they're getting divorced, what their children are named, and I don't love that. I do like the mystery. I do like old Hollywood. And I also really like just the way that a lot of the actors and actresses of the time were trained, and the way that they handle people. It's
a colleague of mine used to call it good toilet training.
It is, though. It is. And this is the stuff that I do wish people learned. And this goes across the board. Arlene has been a publicist for 400 years. And Arlene is a key part of how my dad was able to write his Disney book. Arlene was a huge piece of that.
Yep.
And part of that was that she believed that now again, this is different times, but when my dad reached out, it was her job. And this young man wanted to do this different stuff with Disney, and she was a publicist and she made sure it happened. Well, nowadays things are different. And so some publicists are trained well and some are not. So, this is the part where I feel it is important for people to learn, and to try to educate themselves, to just be, good at what you do and to care about what you do.
I got spoiled. I called Walt Disney Production. The day that Walt Disney died, in December of '66, I was homesick from school and I heard this news on the radio. And I was not only upset, but I was empowered to write something extensive about Walt Disney, whom I idolized. And so I decided I would devote the next issue of my fanzine, Film Fan Monthly, to the complete works of Walt Disney. Space dictated it would be all the feature films that Walt Disney made, and an annotated listing. And I lived in the suburbs in New Jersey, but we had a Manhattan phone directory that thick. And I looked up Walt Disney Productions in New York, called the number, and whoever answered at the switchboard, remember switchboards? Whoever answered at the switchboard said, who do you want to speak to? And I said, I'd like to talk to someone in publicity. Boom. I got this nice woman named Arlene Ludwig. And she didn't know me from Adam, as they say. And I told her what I was trying to do, and she said, "How can I help?" I said, "Well, I have most of the research, but I could use some illustrations, some stills." She said, "Tell me what you need." Easy. Around the same time, Charlie Chaplin was making what turned out to be his final film, A Countess from Hong Kong, for Universal Pictures. And I wanted very much to get a photo.
Accountants from Hong Kong?
No.
A countess from High
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
You just mumbled. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So I wrote to Universal Pictures publicity department and sent a copy of the magazine and said, we'd be very interested in printing a still. And I was very obsequious in my letter writing for these things, you know, groveling almost. And I got a letter back. If I thought hard enough, I could remember this man's name because it rang in my rattled in my brain for years. He wrote, he said, Universal Pictures doesn't consider your magazine a suitable outlet for publicity for our films. However, so that your letter shouldn't be a total loss, here are 2 stills. Now, if he was going to send me the stills anyway,
well, I got to be a jerk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I got to write a mean letter.
Exactly. And I was really taken aback because up to then, I'd met so many nice people.
Yeah.
In the business.
Yeah.
And so that's why that one really stuck.
And I love that Arlene is still someone so important to us. And obviously growing up, I didn't know how long my dad had known Arlene because I've known Arlene all my life, most of my life. I didn't know until I was a little bit older. And she's still just a spectacular woman with so many interesting stories. Again, remembering that the list of people who still who are still around who knew Walt, actually knew Walt, is a short one.
Her father was hired in 1940 by Walt and Roy when they needed an advance man, old-fashioned term, to canvass the country to install Fantasound, the first iteration of stereophonic sound. To show Fantasia. Little dreaming that activities overseas in World War II would kind of make that impractical, if not downright impossible. And but they remembered him and liked him and his attitude and his work ethic. And when in the early 50s they decided they no longer wanted to be beholden to RKO to distribute their movies,
they reached out
and they started their own company called Buena Vista. And Irving was the president for a good many years. And
to this day, especially if you're out here in Los Angeles, you can go to Burbank, which is where Disney Studios are. You still see Buena Vista. It's still alive and well in that way.
It's on Buena Vista Street.
Yes. Jim Batts says, thanks so much for responding to my cartoon shorts with the celeb characters question last Sunday. I will say again that if you've never seen Little Mother Goose Goes Hollywood, one of the funniest and best that exists. I remembered another one, 1939's The Autograph Hound, starring Donald Duck. The sequence with the Ritz brothers is so great. Have you seen it?
Yes, I like The Autograph Hound very, very much. It even has one of my favorite character actors, Henry Armetta, is caricatured in that one. And there's a great little bit with Shirley Temple, too.
Yeah. Now, the Ritz brothers, I actually just taught Hugo, my friend Hugo, who's 5 years old. I just taught him how to count with his eyes.
Oh, my.
I thought you'd be proud of that.
I am proud of that.
If you don't know, it's a skill that you learn if you're me as a kid that no one understands. And it looks like this. And it all comes from
Harry Ritz.
Harry Ritz. So yes, I just taught a 5-year-old that. So now I've ruined his life. Thanks so much. This is what I pass on, is I pass on the weirdness and ridiculousness. I assume that that's how the lake at Walt Disney World was named Lake Buena Vista. Yeah. Yep. That is why. Ken says, possible baby name, Check the Gate. Check the Gate Hadfield is a good name. I don't disagree. It would work for a boy or a girl.
That's true.
You know, Check the Gate. Now, but here's the question: is it one? Do we put dashes in, or do we just leave it as check the gate with spaces?
Or do you take the liberty of making it a Brooklynese? Check the gate.
Check the gate. That's right. My mom might like that.
Yeah.
It's an excellent one. I will add that to the list of possible baby names.
Or alternatively, a rock band name.
Also that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same. If you're going to name your baby, you might as well name your rock band.
Right.
Jonathan says, what is your favorite Disney animated film with Glenn Keane's animation?
Oh, well.
All of them.
All of them. Well, he really brought Ariel to life.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of Hercules. It's sort of not everyone's first choice.
I love Hercules so much.
From that era.
Yeah.
But I like Hercules very much.
Yeah. Oh, Kevin's asking if you watched the first part of Spike Lee's new doc. Did you guys? I forget.
No.
Yeah.
I meant to, but I did not. So I have to catch up now.
He has a new one. It's on Sunday nights on HBO. And it's from 9/11 to
21 and a half.
21 and a half. Yeah. It's a new Spike Lee joint, as he likes to say. Frank's saying, did the production code also reflect a nervousness on the part of the powers that be about the bitter labor struggles of 1934 growing into a revolutionary movement?
I don't think they're related. I don't think that they were pretty much concurrent. You're right. But I don't think they are related, because one was a fear of censorship from, different communities, different cities, different church organizations, civic groups. And the other was kind of behind the curtain, inside business.
Yeah.
And which made it a very tumultuous time.
Yeah. Nick's saying he didn't understand why Hercules wasn't as successful. See, what's funny, though, is Hercules is one where anybody of my generation is obsessed with it. Really obsessed with it. So there are movies like a Goofy movie, Hercules, what have you, that we can quote everything, every word. I love Hercules. I watch it all the time. It's it's on my computer when I travel as one of my sort of go to sleep, relax movies.
And you get to hear Charlton Heston say, "You go, girls.
You go, girls."
Yeah.
That's so good. It's such a good one. Such a good one. And I love the music in it. Henrik says, on your podcast, you've often asked biographers like Scott Eyman and Mark Elliott if there was ever a subject that they researched and then later disliked them or changed their opinion of them. If you can reveal or not, was there ever a time you read a biography and once you finished, you had received that same effect, a changed opinion?
Not that I can recall, and I never talked to Mark Elliott. No, I don't think so.
Are you thinking Mark Harris? Maybe you mean Mark Harris.
Yes.
Yeah, you probably just mean Mark Harris.
Yeah. No, I think I've come away with a greater appreciation of each person whose life I've read about in some depth.
I would also say that most of the books you read, if it is especially on one person in particular, you do sort of have a sense of them going in.
Yeah.
Most of the books that you read. So it wouldn't be a surprise. Look, we just posted about this on my dad's website, leonardmalton.com, about the Jerry Lewis book, Total Filmmaker, and you wrote the foreword. And so is it
it's a reissue of the book.
With added stuff.
Yeah. They haven't touched the original text. What they've done is they've dressed it up with a lot of wonderful.
They did what you do
additions.
To Blu-rays. They added stuff.
Yes, there's a little forward from his wife, his widow. There's a nice little piece by Dean Martin's daughter, and by some of his students at USC, like Randall Kleiser and Caleb Deschanel, and a lovely little essay by Nicolas Cage, who idolized Jerry.
Yeah.
And finally got to work with him in a film called Trust that I saw at South by Southwest.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
And it's a good little film, also starring Elijah Wood. And Jerry's in it playing Nick Cage's father, but the part is very small, and apparently it was meant to be bigger, and things happened.
Yeah.
But Cage's little essay is quite lovely.
Yeah.
Plus, there are behind-the-scenes photos I've never seen before, and copies of script pages with Jerry's markings. It's a really good package, worth the money.
The reason I bring it up is because, obviously, as we're talking about people and reading biographies, one of the first things you had to say in posting about this is, I know that Jerry Lewis was not a saint, and that he had a healthy ego, big ol' ego.
But that's clear when you read the book, because the book is adapted from his classroom lectures at USC in the early '60s, and they're an honest portrayal of who he is, who he was.
So that's it's again, I very much believe that you don't need to stop loving your heroes, respecting your heroes. I don't think you have to stop that. I think that it's just important that you can acknowledge it and see it, but it doesn't mean they have to stop existing. You don't have to pretend that they're no longer there. Hello in Belgium. Hi from Belgium. Nice to meet you. Do you collect vintage movie tie-in books from the 20s, 30s, 40s?
Yeah. I've had to stop.
It's true.
I just had to stop myself. There was one volume I was looking for a long, long time. And when the internet geared up and started making used books more readily available and rare books more readily available, I knew that there was a companion book to the Powell and Pressburger film, A Matter of Life and Death, also known as Stairway to Heaven. And I finally found in Australia a good condition with the dust jacket copy.
With the dust jacket.
Yeah, that's a compound adjective. A good copy with the dust jacket.
Dust jacket might also be a name for the child.
And I made that purchase, but then looking at the jacket flap, it informed me that it was one of a series of tie-in books with British films of the late 40s. And so I bought some more, and then I had a chance to buy a batch more, and then I said, I gotta stop.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah, ruh-roh.
Yeah. How many Blu-rays and DVDs does Leonard Maltin own? Many.
But in fairness, I should say that a lot of them have been sent to me.
Yeah,
because I promote them by reviewing them. And so if I had to go out and buy them like a civilian,
like a regular human being,
like a regular human being,
we may not have as many.
Yeah,
but because they do come to the house, it's nice. I swear, Kino Lorber should just have a person dedicated to delivering things to you, because it's a running joke now. You must get a box a day. Honestly. It's hilarious.
They are so prolific right now.
They do so much,
and they license things from so many different distributors.
Yeah,
it's
tons.
wonderful. They have access to the Universal Library, which includes the Paramount Library from the 30s and 40s, golden years indeed, from 1929 to 49, and they're putting out all sorts of wonderful stuff.
Yeah. Great that Citizen Kane will get the Criterion treatment.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Well, of course.
Yes.
Of course.
And especially if you've seen the first iteration of Citizen Kane digitized. I don't remember how and under whose auspices this came out. Warner Brothers now owns the RKO library, including Citizen Kane. And when they first released it, they over-restored it. Try to explain that. Well,
too much.
It's
like what happened to Mary Poppins.
Yes. You can, with all good intentions, you can try to improve the look of an older movie by taking out, say, the grain. Now, the grain is part of the texture of old movies as we know them, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But there's some people raised in the video era who find all of that objectionable.
I object to you then, if you find that objectionable.
You can even
how
pump
many
up the
years
color.
ago was the Mary Poppins?
Oh, it's 40th anniversary.
They did a restoration of Mary Poppins, and they did a whole event, and we got to see it at the El Capitan, which is a beautiful theater here. And oh my God, it was horrible.
And the soundtrack.
They treated
the soundtrack
because you're not meant to see this in like a 4K. The makeup, everything. It was distractingly terrible.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Now in Citizen Kane is full of visual effects, optical effects. Many of them engineered and executed by a man I got to know pretty well, Linwood Dunn. Look him up. He's
legend.
He is the legend.
Legend.
He was one of the inventors of the optical printer. And the optical printer is the unsung hero of Citizen Kane. Well, in the first 5 to 10 minutes, there's so many effects, and they are somewhat camouflaged by that grain, that film grain. It's hard to describe, hard to articulate in a way that's meaningful. But what they did was by cleaning all that up, it just exposed
that it doesn't
the trickery.
Yeah.
And to my mind, ruined the movie.
Yeah.
There was another incident when, speaking of North by Northwest, when years and years ago, I think for the Laserdisc release, somebody looked at the finale, or the climax, I should say, on the president's sculpture. My brain just went dead.
President sculpture?
Yeah. The 4 presidents.
Mount Rushmore. Damn that COVID. It's all going to be okay.
Damn that COVID. Anyway, and the Mount Rushmore scene is supposed to take place either at night or at twilight or something like that. And somebody walked through the video transfer room and said, "Oh, it's too dark."
No bueno.
and
no bueno.
Turned up the light and again exposed, some of the visual sleight of hand. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Oh, there. Mike McCarthy says, "Guess what just arrived at my front door? Thank you for the announcement that the Total Filmmaker was back in print and with a forward pen by you. Just got it."
Well, thank you.
Congratulations, Mike. That's lovely. Victoria says, "Do you garden? Is there memorabilia in the backyard?" There is. At our old house, we had a much bigger backyard and there was more stuff. Now it's quite tame. It's a small backyard, so it's quite tame. Hello, husband. Hi. Husband just got back from work. Have you seen Raya and the Last Dragon yet?
No, I haven't had a chance to see it. It's on my to-do list. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, same. I get, there's stuff that it's not that you aren't seeing it, you just don't see it. The Beverly Theater, Quentin Tarantino bought the Vista. He's owned the New Beverly for a few years, for a while now, I guess, actually. But he just purchased the Vista Theater, which is also in Hollywood. Is there one cartoon you would call your favorite? Mine is Tex Avery's Symphony in Slang.
It would be a tie between the band concert with Mickey Mouse.
So good. And
Wabbit Twubble with Bugs Bunny and the Fat Elmer Fudd. Directed by Wabbit Quampit. That's exactly how the titles are spelled.
It says directed by Wabbit Quampit.
Yeah.
I also, my brain is mush. Hi, Logan. Where he's, for crying out loud. It's where he's the goddess. It's
What's Opera Doc?
Thank you. What's Opera Doc?
He's Brunhilde.
Brunhilde, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, Brunhilde, you're so lovely. Remember the next line?
Yes, I know it.
I can't help it. Yes, I know it. I can't help it. Yes, Nick, there's the dog. It's true. Logan has not let out many awoos today, but that's not to say he won't join in. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the other questions you guys have. 1 second.
I'm going to do a little show and tell in just a moment.
Yep. Hello, Maltins. Hi, Amy. Do you have a favorite pre-code genre? I love the comedies.
Well, I like the darker films, like 3 on a Match Skyscraper Souls, Redheaded Woman, Beauty and the Boss. The films that tend to be more raw, punchy.
That's a fair answer.
I thought it was fair.
Oh, I like what you brought today.
Okay, this is a fan featuring Constance Talmadge, the charming actress who co-starred in D.W. Griffith's Intolerance and was so endearing in that film. It helped boost her career. And throughout the 20s, she made a long series of sophisticated comedies, several with Ronald Colman. And
the back is in Spanish.
Yep.
Yeah. This is at the back. It has a whole little thing about her and the film.
Now, people often ask me, what am I looking for as a collector?
Anything. Let me answer that question. Anything. He collects anything he can get.
I'm looking for stuff that I don't know exists.
Yeah.
That I've never seen before. These are transfer pictures. And it's a pad of transfer pictures. Transfer pictures I dimly recall from my childhood were either like phony tattoos, temporary tattoos, or something like that, where you rubbed on them. Yeah. Now I have two examples of them. They're both from RKO Shorts. Who would license short subjects, and why? Even I have to ask that.
Somebody, but I do love that it says "Made in Japan" in huge letters.
Yep.
So you know where it came from.
Early 30s. This one is for
There's another Logan Awu.
A Mickey Maguire short.
Yes.
Mickey Maguire being a character from the comic pages who was portrayed here with a little derby by young Mickey Rooney.
Yep.
Who at one point changed his name legally to Mickey Maguire. Go figure. And here's another one. This is for a short I've actually seen called Shampoo the Magician, starring the wonderful Hugh Herbert. And Shampoo the Magician, the name being a takeoff on Shandu the Magician.
Look at that.
Which was a very popular radio serial at the time. And to complete your Hugh Herbert collection, look out for that.
Which one must?
Yeah. All right. I'm going to tell this short version of this story. 40-some years ago, I was a telephone bidder in an auction from a place in Long Island that's still in business called Just Kids and Nostalgia.
And you mentioned this last week.
I did?
You told the story, and I said that as soon as it came, we would show everybody. But the short version, he bid on this 40-some years ago.
And lost.
Lost.
And then last week I found it on eBay.
He got it.
This is an Al Hirschfeld rendering of the wonderful Charlie Chase. With little cutouts so your eyes can see where you're trick-or-treating or amusing your friends.
On the sides, Rio double edge blades, 3 for 10 cents. Standard Safety Razor Corporation, good to know. On the other side says Charlie Chase, copyright 1933? 1933. Hal Roach Studios Inc. Get complete set. Laurel Hardy Chase Ruggles. Patent applied for. Patent.
Wonder if they ever got that patent.
I know. Well, that's the other part of the mystery, isn't it? But yeah, you got it. You actually got it. And I'm very happy for you.
After 40 years.
40 years. Lost it. Someone sniped him.
And mind you, I did get the Oliver Hardy, which is framed and on our wall.
Yeah.
But he's kind of lonely.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Now he's a happy camper. And think about maybe this Halloween, this is how we'll have you at the door. Terrifying the children. Just terrifying the crap out of children. And then having to explain who Charlie Chase is. Victoria says, Casablanca is on TCM. Hurry. Yes, you've only seen it 872 times. Mind, if it's on, he will watch it again because it's one of those movies.
Yeah.
Do the Maltins do the swap meet? Imagine the treasures you find there. My parents used to go to a lot of different places.
We used to, when we traveled. I mean, one of the perks of traveling was finding antique stores, dropping in at flea markets and swap meets and things like that. We've gotten lazy. That's the truth.
Well, also eBay.
Yeah. And eBay is one of the reasons we were able to get lazy, because the stuff came to us now. But you can still browse and find odd and unusual and interesting things.
And what was my assignment when we go? What were the 2 things you'd have me look for? Do you remember?
Oh, yes. Material related to a chain of restaurants called Chicken in the Rough.
Chicken in the Rough. Imagine a 7-year-old walking up to your table and going, "Excuse me, do you have any chicken in the rough?" It was also very useful because I was smaller. I could see the lower shelves. And what else?
What? I don't remember.
Anything Disney related.
Oh, yeah.
But this was many years ago. So that was a harder thing to locate. So I'd find any Mickey Mouse that I could, anything Disney. And again, very useful because I was very low to the ground. So I could see all the lower shelves. And that's something we always, my parents were smart because they found a way to make it an activity for all of us.
Yeah.
By giving me assignments. Jesse, go look for this, go look for that. And then I would.
Sucker.
I know. I didn't know. It was, look, I'm giving you credit. Giving you credit that as a kid, you tricked me into thinking I was doing, well, I mean, I was helpful.
Yep.
You know?
You know what I've been doing this week?
What have you been doing
you do know what I've been doing this week.
I do.
I
live with you. I know exactly what
I've never done this before. I'm recording the audio of my upcoming book, Starstruck. And I've never read one of my books before. And it's
No. You've never read aloud.
I've never read one of my books.
You've read your own books. Never read my own books. I've heard they're trash. Yeah. Don't really care.
I've never read them aloud. And it's challenging. It's challenging, especially because it is my book and my story, that you don't want it to sound too stiff or formal, the way you might read, Charles Dickens' novel. You want to keep the informality of the writing, and
but you're also finding stuff you want to change.
Well, yes,
you're also finding
the
stuff you want to move around,
right. and of course. You want to enunciate. You want to be conversational, but you don't want to swallow words. So that's a fine line for me. I'm not a trained actor. I don't have some of the skills.
You wrote a chapter about Gloria Stewart, and from the title to the first paragraph, because I'm listening to all of them and helping him. Even I was like, there's a lot of words there. It's a lot of words there. You did it a few times. I'm tongue-tied listening to it.
Oh, man. Some of these sentences of mine.
At least you did it to yourself.
They scan okay for the eye, but to read them without taking breaths in inappropriate places.
He's given himself a task, real task.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud of you, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. And I love listening to you tell the stories, because obviously reading it's fun, but hearing you talk about it is more entertaining to me.
Well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, and considering I know all the stories, that's saying something. I know what you're going to say, and I still find it amusing. So that's good.
There we are. And I started teaching this week.
Yes, one person asked how your class was this week.
It went well.
It did.
It went well, and it's still strange to look out at a crowd of 200 some. People with masks. That's not normal.
But
it's not normal.
It worked.
It worked.
And you had a good first class out, which is great.
Yep.
And yeah,
and I did what I've been doing for the past several years. I brought a roll of 35 millimeter leader on a core. Pardon me. This was blue, blank leader.
Hang on, was it blue? It was. I'm looking at my dad's colorblind. So he has one that's yellow. You have one that's sort of an orange. So this actually was blue. Go on.
Verified now.
Verified that it was blue. Yes.
And a scissors. And I say to the kids, they're not kids, young people. I said, I know many of you have never seen or worked with film, motion picture film. Everything's digital nowadays. So I thought you might enjoy looking at and maybe taking home a piece of 35 millimeter film. I also show a short from my 16 millimeter collection. I unspool a reel of that to show them what that looks like. But then the 35 millimeter, I let them, snip pieces, and it's like I was giving away gold nuggets.
They get excited.
They're very, very excited about having it, and I'm delighted. I mean, it satisfies a curiosity.
Yeah.
And maybe gets them talking and thinking about film.
Yeah, which is nice. Now, we will not be here next week because we are going to the Telluride Film Festival. We all are leaving on Wednesday. We head out. The dogs are here to hold down the fort without us. Don't be sad, Logan. We'll be back, though. And we're excited. We're all excited. We're excited to get away. They're taking a million precautions best as they can, but we're just really excited to be there with all of our friends and enjoy it. But yeah, so we won't be here. Thank you, Ryan. We won't be here next Sunday. I always try to post stuff from Telluride anyway, just to sort of show you what's going on. Of course, this year will be quite different, so we'll see what happens. But we'll be back after that.
And look forward to seeing you all again in 2 weeks.
Thank you, as always, for joining us. We really appreciate your time. And we will speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Do you want to hit the button? You trust yourself to hit the button?
No.
Then I will hit the button.